Daybreak Africa is your one-stop top-notch breakfast show that brings you all the interesting stories happening in and around Africa.
Because we have all the morning essentials,
including the latest news, sports, weather, and events. And of course, the people.
Daybreak Africa on Television Nigerian.
Weekdays, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
It's actually a very beautiful day and an important day in the history of Nigeria, with the spirit so high as the nation celebrates another Democracy Day. I'd like to welcome you officially on today's edition of the program, Daybreak Africa on Television Nigeria. My name is Elvis Oga.
And my name is Mercy Joe. Good morning, everyone, and happy Democracy Day. In 1999, Nigeria returned to democratic rule. True. Since after the military regime,
which actually was ushered in by General Abdulsalami Abubakar, who handed over to General Olusegun Obasanjo in the 1999 election, which has actually made, which has actually given the rise to one of the longest democratic regime or era in Nigerian history as a nation.
Because since then we've had 5 circles of governance from different leaders, Obasanjo,
down to Yar'Adua, to Goodluck Jonathan, and the incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari.
Well, this morning we have 2 guests with us. Mr. Tanko Yunusa, he's the national chairman of the NCP, National Conscience Party. It was a party founded by Gani in Gani's time. And our second guest will be David Anyale, Executive Director, Center for Citizens with Disabilities, CCD, in Nigeria.
He will be joining us via Zoom, and while Mr. Yunusa
will be here with us
live
in person
to talk about the journey of democracy so far, and then David, who is who happens to be the National Executive Director of Citizens with Disabilities.
We'll be talking about
the inclusion of people with disabilities
in the country. All right, let's go on a very short break. When we come back, we'll have our guest with us.
Assuming there was good faith on the part of government, all matters relating to the election should have gone to the tribunal set up by law for such cases, and should only have been initiated by persons or bodies that had genuine interest in the election. Instead, we are being told that the judiciary behaved so badly that I, Moshood Kashima Wolawale Abiola, should be penalized for his conduct. It is incredible. In view of all this, I find the conclusion unfortunate but inescapable that the federal military government is guilty of bad faith, pure and simple. No one has accused me of any offense against any known electoral law or regulation. The people of this country went to polls on Saturday, June 12, 1993, and without let or hindrance chose me as their president. Didn't they? It is inconceivable that a few people in government should claim to know so much better about politics and government in our country than the 14 million Nigerians who actually went to the polls on June 12. It is gratuitous insult to suppose that any government, no matter how impressed it is by its own knowledge and wisdom, should, against the people's will, continue to make laws and regulations whose only permanent characteristic is inconsistency. This country is tired of their inconsistency. The people of Nigeria have spoken. Unfortunately, apparently, what the people said was not what they wanted to hear. It was tough luck for them. It is the people's voice that will be heard and will be heard and will be heard again. They have loudly and firmly proclaimed their preference for democracy.
We have Mr. Tanko Yunusa with us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Yunusa.
Good morning.
Happy Democracy Day.
Same to you.
Happy Democracy Day to you. It's so good to have you join us on the program.
All right, Democracy Day in Nigeria was initially marked on the 29th day of May every year since 1999 until 2019, May 29. May 29, 1999 was the date Nigeria transited from military rule to civilian rule. The military regime of General Abdulsalami Abubakar handed over to the incoming civilian administration of President Olusegun Obasanjo, who himself was a former military ruler. So, Mr. Yunusa, I have this quick question for you this morning. Since 1999, Nigeria has been experiencing worrisome challenges like massive corruption in the system, godfatherism, widespread insecurity, ethnic, tribal fights, killings across the nation. So the question is this: after 21 years of democracy in the country, do you think it's enough for Nigeria to have solved the majority of these problems, if really we are a serious country?
Well, let me congratulate Nigerians for this hard-earned struggle.
Yes.
And happy Democracy Day for some of us who have been in the struggle and the trenches for a very long time. To answer your question, I don't think we've done enough, and we should have done better. And I give you a little story. Even before this particular situation that we found ourselves, this same killing, corruption, stealing, unemployment rate, and lack of, focused movement as a country has been there even before the June 12, 1993.
Sure.
So many of us who really went into the trenches to fight fight against such malfeasances and trying to correct the system, decided at that time to vote for an individual that we think can be able to unite the country and bring back some of those lost glories and all. And the reasons for this is that because that particular individual has exemplified himself across board, and he was not tribalistic in any way. He was already a rich person. He was comfortable. But what he has, he's ready to give. If at that time, Abiola, in this particular contest, was building hostels for schools, universities, and polytechnic, I stayed in one of the hostels in which he built in Kaduna Polytechnic at that time.
Wow.
So the idea was that this is a person who's ready to give back to the society. And Nigerians vote across board. The story I'm giving to you is a life story. I was living in Lagos. Our fathers, this tribal and sentiment voting system.
Yes.
I'm a Hausaman, I'm from Kano State.
Wow.
Okay, so we were supposed to vote for an individual that we believe in. So majority of us, it was option A for. So you're supposed to queue and see exactly who you are voting for. There was a Tofa who was from my own state as at that time, of course, a businessman and all, but his track record has not outweighed that of Abiola. So we all, normally you only follow your fathers, they will tell you that queue this way, you follow them. But in our own case, all of the young men and ladies and all, and some of our mothers who listen to us, because we had to queued on the line of MKO Abiola. You need to see the queue. It was so long. So, and at that time, it was irrespective of whether you are a Christian, or a Muslim or Yoruba. And in fact, to say the truth, that time we were having a joint ticket of a Muslim because he was joining together with Babagana Kingibe, who is from the northeast, a Muslim too. So nobody cared.
Wow.
What we wanted was somebody who could build a nation that everybody feel it has a stake in it.
Yes.
So imagine 27 years ago, 27, that particular person have been allowed to at least do what he wants to do for the country.
Yeah.
8 years within that time, we will have had maybe 19 years or so difference already still intact. Because the man will have finished his term and gone.
Yeah.
Possibly 8 years. Wow. That's all. But here we are, 27 years after, we're still in the same situation, even worse.
Struggling.
Running around the same cycle.
Even worse. So that's to tell you that we have not done enough. It was a serious hope that probably this particular regime in 2015, considering the level of integrity of Mr. President, probably will have had a reincarnation of that, but close to it, but it didn't happen. So as far as we are concerned, we are back to that particular situation of 1993, maybe even beyond. So there's a need for us to reenact that particular struggle towards 2023.
Sitting down here and listening to you, give us a brief history of all what happened, because most of us actually were not really part of it. We read most part of it from the book. It actually made me wish we actually had him came on the throne to actually give out or administer the kind of leadership style he wanted for Nigeria. Trust me, like you rightly pointed out, we don't have been talking about some of those things we're talking about today. But we record that there was a time you were a presidential candidate, and that means you've seen some things that were not done ordinarily. So what would you have done differently to see that democracy is better strengthened?
I was a member of the National Peace Committee that was enacted in 2015.
Okay.
I was the chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council at that time. That's the chairman of all political parties in Nigeria. And when Jega, the chairman of INEC, speak on behalf of INEC, I speak on behalf of the political parties.
Okay.
So that qualified me to be member of that particular peace committee. And then and that committee was led by General Abdulsalam Abubakar. You have Archbishop Onaikan, you have Bishop Martin Skuka, you have Justice Okeji, very prominent in Nigeria. I was just fortunate as a young person to be among those big gladiators. But I was lucky, and I learned a lot of things. And the issue at that point in time was that we've identified that the country is disunited as at that time.
Okay.
And then there was a lot of violence. There's a serious mistrust across the Niger.
Yeah.
People don't trust each other anymore. In fact, if you want to travel to the south, if you're a Hausaman, you don't wear your kaftan anymore. You have to wear shirt and trouser in order not to be maimed. Or if you're coming north, you must make sure you wear a jalabia to protect yourself and all of that. It was that bad. So what we did was that to tell these particular gladiators at that time, President Jonathan and then General Muhammadu Buhari at that time, that look, this country is a precipice of. In fact, there was a insinuation that the country was going to break down. And then so there was a serious challenge. And I must confess, the two of them who are at the helm of the challenge at that time come to an agreement that they need to put this country back together. So the issue of unity is paramount. Now, that particular same issue of unity is so pervasive and so intense to a point that you can feel it in your body, which probably will have solved the problem. But thank God for President Jonathan at that time, he even conceded to defeat as a mark of honor to make sure that this country is not disunited.
Sure.
And of course, General Muhammadu Buhari in his magnanimity too also embraced Jonathan and then to show that particular unity. I don't know where we lost it within the short period of time of this particular 5 or 6 years, that we have not been able to get that particular synergy. For me, that would have been paramount.
Okay.
Sure.
Because if the country is not united, you can't get anything done.
Wow.
We have skilled Nigerians in the southeast. We have well-educated Nigerians in the southwest.
True.
We have dedicated individuals in the north who are ready to put aside some other greed and or at least semblance of it to put the country. These are three fundamental quality that Nigerians have. But if they can put it together, then United States can't catch us in terms of movement. So if we don't put those things together, and Nigerians, young Nigerians, if you watch on the social media the way in which people attack, in fact, if there is any, in fact, what they expect to see is that when I'm putting up a captain like this, they want to see me on the social media defending the interests of the North.
Yes.
When you're wearing an Igbo attire, you are supposed to be defending the interests of the Igbo. If you are wearing a Yoruba attire, you are supposed to replicate what your caps look like. That, of course, does not portend a United Nation.
Sure.
No. So what you need to do is that attack the issues. We're talking about unemployment for Nigerian youth, for God's sake. If majority of them are employed and they are productive,
they will not be channeling their energy into this.
Of course. When we talk about productive tendencies where you have infrastructures moving and producing, what would I, if I am the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, some of the things I've identified easily was, number one, that there's a problem of unity, and that unity can only be seen when I bring people around me who are not exactly from my own village working with me, and people feel that their impact is affecting them positively. Then those who are behind will start thinking differently and start doing something closer and having trust with their own brothers in the north or in the southwest. That way I'm beginning to pull the country together. And first thing I said I would do was I've relocated to the Niger Delta. And you may ask me why, for good reason. The reason is that the Niger Delta is producing majority of what we survive on as a nation at the moment. That does not take away from the fact that some other parts of the country have done so before. You know, but at the moment now they are. And there have been series of complaints as regard to the resources is not getting to. I have seen it. I've been to the Niger Delta, I've seen it. And in fact, is it not dehumanizing for you to see our own brothers and sisters living in thatched houses on top of the sea, desecrating and reproducing in that, and where you are making so much money? How many people are in the Niger Delta? So the first thing I would have done was that, okay, fine, let me do a hide count. Why are you staying in the creek? How comfortable is this creek? Ask this particular multinational company. Okay, fine. Bring in your resources together. Let's build homes for my people. Make them comfortable. That way it can start transcending and you can start doing. The Southeast is complaining. Even though Mr. President said they didn't vote for him, which is understandable, it doesn't matter. I make sure that the Enugu Onitsha road is constructed. There are so many things that one can do.
All right, we have David Anya Alesti with us this morning. Mr. Tanko, thank you very much. But because of time, I would like to ask you this final question. What is your last message to Nigerians and to the government so far?
The government for one, have an opportunity, maybe just 2 years plus, to redeem some of the promises that they've made. And they should make one cardinal point that can help. And the only thing that they have at the moment now that they can quickly do, as far as I'm concerned, is try to reverse some of the appointment and show Nigerians that we are together as a nation. That can set a carpet or a kind of a identifiable road for the next government. Because if you go into the next government in this manner, the same thing may happen. So the only last opportunity they have is that they should quickly, when they are making their appointment, let it change. And I hope and pray, one of my mentors, who happened to be the chief of staff now, Professor Gambari, I wish him well. I wish him well, and I wish he can have the opportunity to do that particular changes now. Because from the center he was leading at that time, the SCCD, he has showcased the interests of rebuilding this country. In all of his discussions, it has been like that. So this is a grand opportunity for him to help in rebuilding and repositioning this country for a better future. We have Nigerians who have patience. And now we are hoping that that patience won't run out of them. And especially the Nigerian youth, please exercise a little bit of restraint and let's work together as a country.
Okay, before we let you go, finally, like my colleague rightly pointed out, we have Mr. David Anyele, who is actually waiting to join us from Zoom, and he's going to discuss the inclusion of people living with disabilities on as long as our democracy is concerned. Let's quickly see if he's with us, so that if you can chip in one or two advices regarding the interview with him on Zoom.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. David. Are you with us?
Mr. David, can you hear us? Are you with us? All right, we'll go on a quick break and we'll rectify that. But before we go on the break, we have had Mr. Tanko Yunusa, the national chairman.
Okay, Mr. David is live with us right now, and we would like to say Happy Democracy Day to you, Mr. David.
It's exciting to witness this 21st uninterrupted democratic session in this country.
Wow. It's really good. Okay, we were made to understand that you are the executive director of our Center for People Living or Citizens with Disabilities, and we want you to highlight us in your own capacity how much of a witness you are to the inclusion of people living with disabilities as long as our democracy is concerned.
It's still a struggle. We've not been carried along.
Okay.
We've been left behind for these 21 years. Just last year, the president signed the National Disability Act, and that was a product of struggle. A struggle to engage the National Assembly, a struggle to engage the executive to get it signed. Even as it has been signed, as I speak to you, the president is here to demonstrate commitment to its full implementation. In particular, Section 2 and Section 31 of the Act. Section 2 provides that the Federal Minister of Information and Culture will lead the process of creating awareness about the contributions of people with disabilities to national development. Section 31 provides that the federal government shall establish a national commission for persons with disabilities. Okay. These two, we've yet to see the commitment and demonstration on the part of the federal government to implement.
All right,
what that is telling us is the life of people with disabilities is yet to matter to our governments.
All right, thank you.
As of now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. David. We still have Mr. Yunusa in the studio with us, and we'd like him to lend a voice a little to that particular issue. I remember vividly you were talking about some of the ways that the current administration can actually leverage on some of the opportunities by revisiting the appointment made. Yeah. We saw that the People Living with Disability Act has been signed, and if you study the bill so fine, you see that they were actually campaigning against a discrimination of people living with disabilities. And then we've seen that, okay, like he rightly said, they have not been carried along that much, and then Nigerians see that it's not enough for us to enact a law about this. Let's take a look at the appointment. How inclusive has this been concerning people?
Virtually none, or very few, let's even assume, because until when the agitation started, mostly by the persons with disability. I remember working closely with Delami, who is one of the leaders of the persons with disability, who has been leading this particular struggle. And I told them at that time, yes, do you know the capacity and the population of the persons with disability? They are running into millions. Sure. And all of them decided at that time, because I am looking at it on the political angle, they decided they want to go to a political party that's already been established. I said, let us use your strength. Like, for example, my own party, the National Conscience Party, happened to be close with persons with disability. May so rest in peace. Chief Ganifa Weme, for example, was the founder of the NCP. Every time in his lifetime, he's dying and wine with person with disability. And I was encouraging them, let's use the NCP as a force. Move all of your members. Let's get some of them to run for election in a certain position. You see, you cannot practice what you preach when you are outside the box. Sure. You can only practice what you preach when you are inside the box. So if, assuming that you have like 3 or 4 persons in National Assembly, Federal House of Representatives, as senators and all of those ones, then in the State Assembly, they have like 3, 4 or some of them already. So any law that they are going to of course, to mention at the preliminaries, will have somebody that will speak for them in there, because it's you who know what is paining you, and you can speak for yourself. Once that is done, the state assemblies is easy. So all of this particular agitation being made by the persons with that bill will have easily scaled through. But at the moment now, what you are having, those who are what like is selfish with their own interests, forgetting that a human being is not completely a human being until the day he died. And before you die, anything can happen. You that you think you are able at this moment now can be disabled between next minute. So whatever you do at that time, you are doing it for the possibility of you being on the other side. So, and unfortunately, we don't have leaders who think that way.
Sure.
Wow. All right, Mr. David, you listen to our guest in the studio. What have you got to say concerning what he just said? Hello, David. Okay, I think the network is a little bit cranky, and we'd like to say a very big thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's been an amazing moment with you, and it was an explosive outing with you as well. Like you remember when I say it's more like a bumper edition of the show today because it's Democracy Day.
True. Mr. Tanko Yunusa is the national chairman of the NCP National Conscious Party, founded by late Gani Faini. All right, we'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have Mr. David and two other guests lined up for us.
There are a lot of false information about the coronavirus. These are the facts. People of all ages can be affected by the coronavirus. However, older people and people with pre-existing medical conditions such as asthma, diabetes, heart diseases are more vulnerable to the disease. It is not for old people alone. Gargling salt and warm water or chewing garlic and ginger cannot prevent the virus. Drinking alcohol, hot lemon, palm oil or chloroquine will not kill the virus. The virus cannot be transmitted through mosquito bites. Antibiotics do not work against the viruses. Antibiotics work only against bacteria. Boiling pineapple peel, lime and ginger does not kill the virus. Putting raw onions in rooms will not ward off the virus. Using or spraying Dettol, special oils and water all over your body cannot kill the virus. There is no scientific evidence that cooking, drinking, or eating any of these is an effective treatment for coronavirus. Do not self-medicate and take responsibility by sharing only verified messages from health authorities such as NCDC, Federal Ministry of Health, and WHO.
This is Television Nigerian, a broadcast network Green Environment of Gusape, Abuja FCT. TVN, as it is fondly called, caters to a wide variety of audience via carefully orchestrated mind-blowing programs in the areas of fashion, business, politics, entertainment, religion, movies, food and health, culture and lifestyle, events around the globe, sports and foreign news. Whatever your inclination, we've got you completely covered with programs like Issues of the Moment, The Patriot, Daybreak Nigeria, Matter Africa, TVN Business Time, Healthy Living, From the Cradle, Stay Inspired, Entertainment Gist, Movie Hour, Hits Paradise, among others. All designed to keep you thoroughly informed, entertained, at the edge of your seat and yearning for more. A tour around our domain will reveal a highly dedicated staff force and a state-of-the-art facility and equipment for high-definition quality broadcast, making our station your #1 choice in advertising your business and propagating your ideas. We are currently on Nigecomsat doing our test transmission for takeoff in the nearest future. Television Nigerian is located in Nigeria at Television Nigerian House, Gusape Hilltop Mansion,
Like we already pointed out, this is still Daybreak Africa, and it's a bumper edition because it is Democracy Day. And we told you that we have a series of guests that will be joining us on the show this morning. So as we speak, we already have Barrister Banke Ilori Oyeni, who is the Executive Director of Raising New Voices Initiative and a lawyer. She is here in the studio with us to talk about the inclusion of women and youth in government since 1999. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have you join us this morning. We still have Mr. David, who is with us on Zoom, and we'll also be joined by Deji, a journalist and a presenter with HIP TV, who will also be joining us from Lagos via Zoom, and he will be talking pretty much about the freedom of press in our democracy since 1999. Yeah. So let's get to know what exactly you do at your initiative.
Okay. Raising New Voices is a non-governmental initiative in Nigeria.
Okay.
We work on inclusive governance and legislative reforms. In the 2019 elections, we commenced a crowdfunding initiative to support 25 young people to contest to be members of the National Assembly.
Oh, wow.
Nice. And how far was the progress with that?
Oh, one of our candidates actually got elected into the House of Representatives that we supported. We were able to get some support, some Nigerians to donate to these candidates directly via our platforms. We provided some of the candidates with flyers and face caps just as our own contribution to ensuring that their campaigns were successful. One of the challenges that young people have had with respect to participation is the financial implication.
True.
Elections in Nigeria is very expensive,
yes.
And if we want young people to get elected, we must find ways to support them, not just by tweeting about what they are doing, but actually giving money, you know.
More like them having sponsors.
Exactly. And if you don't want them to have godfathers, then all of us are going to have to rally around them, come together to support their campaigns, and that was what we did with the Break the Old campaign that we had in 2019.
Okay. Talking about godfathers, what will you say about, like, what's your respect or your view on godfatherism in Nigeria since democracy?
Oh, well, the truth is that he who plays the piper dictates the tune. So we've had some people become authorities in the political space, and while it's not wrong to have power, it's what you do with the power that is important. And we haven't really been able to see changes as far as the presence of these people is concerned. So we've seen allegations of corruptions leveled against some of these godfathers, in quotes, yes, allegations of corruption, and it seems that their presence has done more harm than good, you know, to the political space in Nigeria.
Okay, it's quite interesting and logical that you people decided to pursue this cause this way, which means that, like we just had a guest who talked about, you cannot actually dictate what happens when you are outside the box, you need to get inside. But apart from trying to have people being elected into position, talking about young people, which your organization actually campaigned for, how will you rate the inclusion of young people and women in terms of appointments?
Oh, well, the inclusion has been pretty poor. Since our return to democracy, we haven't had up to 10% representation of women in government. We haven't had a female governor yet, an elected female governor. We've had a couple of deputy governors here and there, but the number compared to that, since women make up 49% of population in Nigeria and there's strong voting bloc, we would love to see more, but unfortunately, a lot hasn't happened, and following the last elections, we now have less than 5% representation of women. And according to the National Gender Policy, we should have a minimum of 35% women in our political space, affirmative action. Yes. But the closest we got to that was during the Goodluck Jonathan era, and now we have witnessed severe decline as far as political participation of women is concerned. And coming to young people, young people have always played tremendous roles in the political space in Nigeria. So before we got our democracy, the likes of Awolowo and the other people that fought to get our democracy, they were in their 20s and in their 30s when maybe some of them were in their early 40s, but they formed the bulk of the people that pushed for independence. And even during the military era, we saw young people forming associations, you know, to push for for freedom of the press, to push for political participation, to push for a return to democracy. But we've not been able to sustain that momentum, when we got back to democracy. But we have been able to get a constitutional amendment to reduce I'm talking about the Not Too Young to Run, that was supported by a youth-based and youth-driven organization. So I would say that that's a plus for us. And we've seen other young people come to talk about inclusion and push for inclusion. So I know that the constitutional reform brought about an increase in the number of young people that we have. It's still minimal because they still do not make up to 1% of the elected officials, but it's a start, and it's been 21 years of my theory is that Nigeria has never witnessed a steady democracy for this long. This is the first time we haven't had Fourth Republic, we have had uninterrupted democracy, and everyone is trying to adjust to this. Everyone is learning to adjust to this, and even the older generation didn't experience this. We are like the first set of people. I'm a young person, so we're the first set of people that would actually witness this long a period of democracy, and we're trying to, do what we can with it. But engaging, you see a lot of people lead a lot of advocacy initiatives. I mean, I work with a youth-based organization, and we're pushing for inclusion in political participation for women, persons with disability, and for young people. So we're doing what we can with this space, but there's so much we need to do as young people. They say we're the future, but I think we're the now. We're the now because we make up. In fact, we make up about 67%, 65% of the voter population. True. So if we can, harness the power that we have, we'll be able to do so much more. And I'm not saying that young people should get involved because it's the nice thing to do. I'm saying we should get involved because we have so much to offer. We've excelled in a lot of other fields. Young people are excelling in advocacy, as I've mentioned, in technology and innovation, in music. In entertainment, we have promoted Nigeria to the world. Our sound is being played all over the world. So even in academics, we see a lot of young people who have gone to get their PhDs at very young age. So, and we have the talents, we have the strength, the strength to navigate the times. Look, for example, the fact that everyone has transferred to having Zoom meetings now. Young people have been able to adapt to that change, but some people haven't. So I believe that our energy, our abilities to innovate can be brought into the governance space of Nigeria, and will do us a whole lot of good. Not just because we're young, but because we are capable. We're intelligent, we're driven, we're smart. Young Nigerians all over the world are making us proud. And that's the narrative we need to push when we're talking about governance and our participation.
Quite a comprehensive insight into what the strength that lies ahead of youth, and then what we can actually achieve with our strength and all. Like we really pointed out, we have other guests who are actually ready to join us, and then we'll speak more on it. Like we already had Mr. David, who happens to be the executive director of the Center for Citizens with Disabilities, and we're expecting Deji, an analyst and a presenter with HIP TV, to join us and talk about the freedom of express with regard to our democracy. Mr. David, are you still with us? Okay, it seems your audio is muted. Can you unmute it so that we can hear you? Okay, that's good. We've actually had a series of guests that spoke. The last time somebody talked about, he was asking if what he said was actually part of your agenda and then part of your plight. And we didn't get to hear from you before we had that technical hitch. Do you have any reaction to that particular question I asked then?
Yeah, I heard when he shared his thoughts around using political approach to, gain access and inclusion.
Okay.
But the question is, how do people who are vulnerable by reason of their status, struggle for political power with the might and big men in Abuja? It is a very serious a game, to wrestle for political position in Nigeria as a person with disability in a country that has no access to public infrastructure, no access to information. Access to information to a deaf person is limited. Access to information to a blind person is limited. Access to physical infrastructure to a physically challenged person is also limited. Coupled with attitudinal barrier, which we suffer. As such, it hovers on, searching our conscience as a people, looking at our lives and say, how do we continue to undermine the most vulnerable of the vulnerable groups by not creating access for them? And that is why we're excited when the National Disability Act was signed into law, which prohibits discrimination on the grounds of disability, which also compare that public infrastructures must be designed in such a way that it will be accessible to all. By so doing, people with disabilities will have at least an equitable access to be able to interface with policymakers, with political actors, so as to create a society that is inclusive for all of us.
All right. Okay. Mr. Tanko actually talked a lot regarding that. When he talked about people living with disability trying to adopt a particular political party, when he made mention of how the founder of NCP was always dining with physically challenged people.
Because we would love to see a situation that, irrespective of the government in Nigeria, how they carry the disability citizens with little regard. We would like to see situations where we ourselves, the citizens of the country, creating parties or organizations like yours, actually
the
draw
point I wanted
closer.
to come in from.
If I may support what you said, I have read the Disability Act as well, and I know that it provides for fines and to compel citizens, especially who discriminate against persons living with disability, and the government must take ownership because they are as much Nigerian citizens as I am or as any other person.
True.
And they make up, if persons with this, I think they make up to 15.4% of the population. It means that they can form, that's the population of some countries in the world.
Yes.
So government needs to take ownership and drive this policy. I don't think they need to form their own political party. We need to be inclusive.
We need to draw them.
We need to be inclusive. So anybody, irrespective of disability, should be able to be a part of your party and contribute meaningfully to whatever is happening in that party. And I know that the Act provides for a 5-year implementation plan as well. And unfortunately, maybe because of COVID, I haven't really seen much being done in that regard. The Ministry of Information is also supposed to do some sensitization, but we haven't really seen a lot in that regard. So the government needs to take ownership. It is good that we have organizations that are working to encourage and ensure that persons with disability are part of the process. But at the same time, the government has a responsibility to every citizen to ensure that they live in dignity and they can aspire to be whatever they want to be, irrespective of
I have this question. Now, we see in the society, since democracy in Nigeria, we even see the youths who are not disabled trying and struggling to fit themselves into the political era in the country. Talk more of those with disabilities. So how do you think that even the ordinary youth that is not disabled is fighting so much? Talk more of those with disabilities. How do you think it can be helped? What do you think can really be the solution to this?
Okay, I think that the Disability Act is not the best. It's a good way to start. It's not a perfect act, but if we can implement the provisions of that act, we'll go a long way. And I don't know if Mr. David would agree with me on that, but I think it's a start. Enforce those things. Building plans should not be approved if they are not accessible.
Yes. I think it was included in the bill.
It is. And I know that there's a non-governmental organization that works with INEC to produce the first what they call it, ballot papers for persons with visual impairment in
like
the last
the Braille
election.
system.
Yes. So those are things that we can do. And when we are talking about issues of persons with disability is something that it's something that can happen to anyone at any point in time. So it is important for us to ensure that anybody in that category will be able to live decent lives. And as citizens, we even need to change our perspective and our approach towards them. Usually when we're talking about issues of persons with disability, we're thinking maybe go to a home to make donations and stuff like that. But that should, I don't think that,
like it seems like that's more or less like the limitation.
That shouldn't be our mindset as citizens. We should see them as a part of our society. Just on Wednesday we had this IG live, and we had someone who contested to be the president of his department in OAU. He was talking about the fact that when he's a person living with disability, so he contested to be class rep and he got in. For about 4 years, he was class rep. When he decided to be president, then they started saying, oh no, something, he won't be able to achieve, what he's supposed to achieve as departmental president. I'm like, you guys saw what this guy did, when he was class rep. Why do you think that there's a problem? So the problem is more with our mindset and how we view persons with disability. I have worked with a number of them, and I think that some of them are smart, even smarter than some persons who are not living with any forms of disability. So we shouldn't have that approach of, oh, these people, they don't want our pity. I think what they need from us is inclusion. We should understand that there are barriers for them to participate, different from even barriers that women face when they're participating, or the barriers that young people face. Now imagine women with disability and young people with disability. Those categories even face like 2 extra sets of barriers. And I don't think that the conversation should be about, let's pity them. And no, that's not. How can we ensure that a society that should be accessible and inclusive should be for everyone? True. It's not supposed to be we're not doing them a favor by including them. They are a part of a society, and they should, be carried along.
Okay, I really want to ask you how you people have been going about segmenting your push or your drive between young people and women generally, because I see that your organization cut across these two people. But before then, allow Mr. David, even though he has been able to put out so many rhetoric questions, by telling us in clear terms, because the whole world is watching, how he thinks the issue that we're dealing with of people living with disability not fully being included will be included. Mr. David, are you with us? Okay. Okay, the question is, you've already given us so many rhetorics concerning how these people living with disabilities have not been carried along. So in clear terms, how do you think they can be carried along?
Institution should conduct what we call, mapping of the environment or audit of the environment to understand disability gap. Disability gap in the sense that, is our environment accessible? Can a person who is blind enter our office without restriction? Can a deaf person be able to relate with us minimally? This is the first and foremost step for you to take. Yes, that this is our services, this is our product, is our services and our product accessible to people with disabilities. By understanding this gap, then it will hover on the institution or organization to begin to say, this is where we are going to start in order to ensure inclusion. We are saying that government at all levels, especially the federal government of Nigeria, should ensure that their program and activities are in line with the provisions of the Act. That is to say, that people with disabilities are not left behind in government program and activities. Just take a look at this PTF on COVID-19 in Nigeria and states' response to COVID-19. You will discover that issues of people with disabilities are really missing. Every day there is usually one piece of guideline by one sector or one group, and these guidelines are being issued at the exclusion of its impact on people with disabilities. That is to tell you that the issue of the people with disabilities come as a, in front burner of national discourse. And that is the reason, because federal government have not demonstrated the desired response to ensure that disabilities are not left behind. So that is first and foremost, to my mind, what we should address first. From there, people with disabilities will do their best.
Okay,
all right. Thank you so much, Mr. David. We actually just got a beep that Mr. Deji is not online, or he will not be able to join us this morning. So back to the question I asked you earlier on, Barrister Abanke. How do you people go about balancing the whole ratio between representing the interests of the young people and the women? Because like I said, your organization cut across these two sets of people.
Okay, young people and women and persons with disability.
Young people and women.
Oh, okay. I mean, we have young women. I'm a young woman. I think
yes.
young
Sure.
so, you know, so we have people who are, we have young people who are women, and we have young men, you know, like you. And what we usually do is to ensure that we mainstream the conversations that we're having. So, like Mr. David has said, every organization should conduct some disability audit, you know. And I also think that every organization should also conduct a gender audit as well. So, what's the gender perspective of this program that you're trying to implement? So we want to do something, for example, the Break the Old campaign that I spoke about, we had female candidates, who were young women. I would even be speaking to one of them later today, Risola Abiola. She contested in Ogun State, I think, you know, and so we need to mainstream that conversation. When we're designing a program, we need to say, okay, what is the gender perspective in this event? What is the disability perspective in this event? So we want to maybe get a venue, for example. Is this accessible, like Mr. David has said? And when we're talking about, okay, we want to have a program, how many women are going to be on our panel? Because it is good that we promote women in conversations, not just conversations talking about women, but conversations that cut across every other issue. So it's not that, oh, okay, well, we want to talk about technology or petroleum sector, and we have 3 men on the panel, no woman at all. That's sending an unconscious message that only men can talk about this issue. And maybe we now want to talk about cooking or, you know, fashion, then we now bring all women.
Oh,
so I'm not saying that
cases, and then
you know,
start seeing messages only being put out by women.
So it's okay that men talk about issues affecting women. I think it's even good. It's as if men listen to themselves some more. So if men can talk about rape cases or issues of sexual violence, that would pass a message that women are not in this alone. And that's something that I think we need to consciously work on. So don't make the panel simply because it's a woman issue, so only women. You know, consider the fact that it's not just a woman issue, it's a societal issue. Sexual violence, for example, is a societal issue, and both genders should be talking about it. Men seeking to understand, not that they'll be saying, oh, maybe they are, not that they'll be looking down on the pain, you know, but coming from an angle of, okay, even if I don't have adequate information about this, I want to understand what this is about, or this is the information that I have. How can we help as men to curb this evil? Because women's rights are human rights. You know, it's not just something affecting women. It's something affecting the society as a whole. We have seen the cases. I saw a report about from Anambra State that the cases were recorded, cases of rape, you know, recorded during this period, lockdown period, were very high. So
close to 100.
You know, yes, close to 100. So it means that it's a societal issue, and we shouldn't just say, oh, only men can talk about this and only women can talk about this. So the next time you want to talk about engineering or I don't know, any issue that people consider serious, how about you consider diversifying your panel? So that, because the way issues, the perspective that women bring to the conversation, the ways issues affect women, for example, electoral violence. Electoral violence is a challenge in Nigerian elections, you know, affects both men and women, right? But the way it affects women is different from the way it affects men. So if you're going to be violent towards a male candidate, maybe you beat him up, or unfortunately you kill him, you know. But that happens to, you can beat up women and you can kill them as well, unfortunately. But there's also the sexual violence perspective, which many male candidates do not suffer. You understand? So in the last election, there was a program for young women who contested, and some of them reported cases of sexual violence being perpetrated against them within their political parties. So when you're having a conversation about electoral violence and you bring just men, you're missing that aspect of the conversation. you're missing that, and that is a very important part of the conversation, because it is limiting the ability of women to participate. But when you don't have that gender perspective, when you're not trying to mainstream conversations consciously, you would miss out on that, and which is a challenge, which is limiting women from participating. Because now you're not only thinking about being beaten up and being killed, you're thinking about being assaulted by your party members or by polling agents, and that's a problem. But people just focus on these are the two aspects to sexual to electoral violence, but there's more that we're missing out when we're not bringing women to the table.
All right, I would like to ask a question. A question I just drew out from the rape cases. Now, during the week, we saw that the lawmakers are passing into a bill, I think, for punishment,
possible punishment
not
for such
even the
offenders.
punishment.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a punishment, and there's the rule that protects rape victims against stigmatization in the country. Now, would you love to see a situation where if rape victims can be saved from stigmatization in the society, if those with disabilities can also have that sort of law guiding them against this stigmatization in the country?
Well, I am of the opinion, and indeed a lot of people have shared this, that our approach to issues affecting women in Nigeria is the main problem, when it comes to instances of rape, as you have mentioned. So we have laws. I mean, we have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act that says life imprisonment. We have the Criminal Code, life imprisonment. Penal Code says 14 years. The Child Rights Act says life imprisonment for anybody that has sex with persons under 18. Whether you know that the person was up to that age or not, it's a statutory provision.
Age of consent comes in.
Age of consent. So
age of consent is 18.
18.
Yes, because one time in the program
there
we
was
were
a controversy.
looking for a lawyer.
It's 18. That's what the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act says. Age of consent is 18. But the issue with that act is that it has to be domesticated. So far, some states are yet to domesticate it. So we have about 25 states that have domesticated it, leaving 11 states who are unfortunately from the northern part of Nigeria. So if you're watching, please call your legislators. Get them to pass, to domesticate the VAP Act. If they have not domesticated the Child Rights Act, get them to do that as well. So that because some states will say, the VAP Act, 11, because the VAP Act.
So they can marry up their children at age of 13.
So if we have the VAP Act in place, the Child Rights Act in place, then it will be something that is applicable across the nation. So the issue of stigmatization is not, so these laws are in place here, and implementation is a challenge.
That's the challenge.
It's the challenge, and that's because stigmatization is what we do as a society to people. We find a way to blame the victims. What were you wearing? Why were you out by that time? And the issue is absence of consent. Even if the person is a commercial sex worker, consent is what the law requires.
It matters.
And that is what we should be focusing on. So that stigmatization will be changed by a reorientation of our society. You don't have a right to a woman's body. You don't have any right to anybody's body, irrespective of how the person is dressed. It even happens in public areas. In the market, you see market men, touching women, assaulting them in the market. We've had market marches in various parts of the country. Just last week, we had a protest here in Abuja to protest the high incidences of sexual and gender-based violence in the country. So stigmatization, the laws are good. If you can get a law, fine. But it's more about how we respond as a people. And that orientation should come, the government should take leadership as well, I believe. But as individuals as well, it's a conversation we can have amongst ourselves. Even talking to the older generation. Because at least we are trying to listen that consent is key. But some people still believe that, a rape, it's the victim's fault. If I want to hang out, I think that, for example, we are a group of friends, guys and girls. If we want to hang out, I expect that you're my friend and I should feel safe with you. So I shouldn't be blamed for your failure to honor our friendship if, sexual violence comes into play. But in this country, it is always the woman's fault, you two, why did you go out to take guy?
They're quick to face the victim and start asking questions.
You know that kind of thing. So that's what we should work on. It's the laws are good, but the response, the response and how we engage our society on these issues.
It's just like
what is crucial.
The cases of the police in the country, security level in the country. What is the response level from the security personnel? So immediately you're in trouble. They said there are numbers that you can call. What is the response? Even it came down to even NCDC. Some people asked, how is the response of the NCDC? When I call you, NCDC, what are you telling me? Are you encouraging me to call you back again subsequently?
I mean, there was an unfortunate, during the protest, some of the policemen behind us were saying, you to see what these girls are wearing. It's not something that I was told. I was at the protest, so I heard. In fact, a lady started crying when she heard that, and she faced the policeman, and it was a bit of a drama because I came to your headquarters to protest, and you're telling me,
see what you're putting on.
I mean, and that's the issue here. And the response of the police, sometimes, unfortunately, some of them are the perpetrators. Just last year, we had incidents of commercial sex workers saying that police.
When there was a raid.
Here in Abuja. So
when there was a raid, some of them took advantage of them as bail.
There was confession in the custody. They took advantage of them.
So how do you expect that I would feel safe talking to a policeman because usually they will first say, oh, it was your fault. What were you doing out by that time of the night?
Why were you alone?
Why were you
in that area?
So those are the issues, really.
All right, thank you so much. It's been an interesting encounter and outing with you. But quickly, before we forget that, it's actually a democracy edition of the program. Mr. David is actually still waiting on the line. So let's ask him quickly in a very brief attempt. Mr. David, do you think Nigeria's democracy is where it ought to be? If yes, what do you think are the reasons? And then if it's not, then what do you think we should do to get it where we want it to be? Okay.
The kind of structure we inherited as a people. One of the key challenges we are having here is the issue of identity.
All right.
Until we have identity as a Nigerian, we will struggle much more to benefit from the dividend of democracy.
Wow.
Issue that has to do with ethnicity, religion, is attacking our unity. It's attacking our peace. It's attacking our economy. The political leaders should do much to create atmosphere where every Nigerian should feel safe to move around, to come in, to go out.
Wow.
Other than that, we will continue to struggle. My worry is that our political actors, most times when they speak, they lie. They lie to the people. And a country where leaders tell lies to its citizens can never make progress. Whether you term political or you term it as a statement, whichever way you go about it, a country can only progress when they look at the data before them and respond based on available data to ensure that there is progress, there is peace. 6 states of the federation or the 6 geopolitical zones, there is one security problem or the other. Every day, Nigerians are being exposed to vulnerability. In many parts of this country, you cannot sleep at night. Look at southern Kaduna. Every day, people are being killed. When you open the newspapers, when you listen to the news, all you hear are people are being massacred. Look at Borno State. Every day you come down south, you see the same prevalence. And today we are hearing the emergence of sexual violence against women, against young girls.
Minors.
So the political leaders see future and be able to dwell in the future they want to feature in. So these are the key issues that are pertinent to me. When we talk about 21 years of uninterrupted democracy in this country, and I ask myself, and so what? What do we gain from all this? What can we lay our hands on and say, this is why I can raise green, white, green flag and fly it at my balcony and to tell Nigerians congratulations? Many people are crying. Many people are wallowing. Many people don't even have food to eat as I speak to you. Many people don't even know where their next meal is going to come from. Beyond the COVID-19 pandemic, the situation is terrible. The political class should wake up. The stealing in this country is unimaginable. Corruption is everywhere. After security, the next thing you hear is about how political class are gathering up against this country, stealing our patrimony. It's disheartening. Therefore, while we thank God that there is no military takeover of government, we have seen Nigerians should begin to ask questions. This country belongs to us. That councillor that is representing you, that House of Assemblyman that is representing you, that governor that is representing you or leading you, we need to ask questions and demand accountability from them so that our children will not suffer what we are suffering today.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. David. That was quite a comprehensive one. I love using the word comprehensive a lot because that's the only thing that comes to my head. One, I see that people actually are hitting the right at the point that I really want them. From what he has said, I think I've been able to understand the fact that upholding a political position goes beyond going there to maybe achieve or maybe enjoy some of the benefits that comes with it. It puts your integrity on check to test and several other things, and then it actually gives you the opportunity, the ample opportunity to bring remedy to some of the challenges we're facing as a country. And then quickly to you, Barrister, how would you rate our democracy so far? If it's not where we want it to be, what do you think we can do to get it where we want it to be?
Yeah, that would be your last message to Nigerians.
Oh, okay. So this, I think that Nigerians, of course, our democracy is not where we want it to be, unfortunately. What we need to do as a people is to also take ownership of our democracy. So engage, like Mr. David has said, engage your political office holders. Some of the human beings naturally don't want to, they need a little push to get things done. So I remember that something happened. One of the lawmakers made a statement about rape, a statement that wasn't palatable. He was saying that he talked about dressing of women, I think, in the course of the week. And some young people took it up, got his phone number, his email, and said, okay, Nigerian youths, help us tell this man that what he said is wrong. The man came, in fact, there were two of them like that. They came out to apologize. They said they didn't mean it like that. It was an unfortunate statement. They regret it and stuff like that. So it just goes to show that we have power, actually, and no matter how stressed or pressed we feel right now, we can rise from that and take ownership of our governance systems, take ownership of our spaces, get involved, be enlightened, seek information, and try to ensure that the lawmakers, our governors, our senators, everyone involved in political space gets responsible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. My partner in progress. We had series of guests today that actually made it feel like we are not together, but trust me, we are together.
We're together, always together. Well, the thing is that irrespective of the shortcomings of the country since democracy, we still have quite some positive influx in the country.
Yes, true.
We can still say some little things that have been done. I mean, we have better roads these days compared to before. What would you have to say about that?
Well, I use road travel sometimes when I work in Osun State, as I'm from Osun State, so I don't know, the roads give me body.
There's no total agreement there, right?
The thing here is that in as much as I would like to say, unfortunately, Nigeria has not gotten to where we wanted to be in 21 years. We know where we used to be and we know where we are now.
I mean,
because regard irrespective, we may not be able to categorically give main facts, but Nigeria is not where it is.
Even not for anything, for the fact that we've had democracy uninterrupted for 21 days is one of the wins.
Our economy has actually, I was reading a report, since 1999, our GDP has increased. So we've had more laws being, passed, more laws that are people-oriented and pushed by the people being passed. And now, people can talk. Freedom of press, might not be where we want it to be, but it has increased, to a certain level. So I think we can be grateful and,
hope for the best.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. It's been Daybreak.
Yes, thank you.
Daybreak Ilori Oyemi, the Executive Director, Raising New Voices Initiatives in Nigeria. Thank you very much for being with us in the program this morning. Thank you, Mr. David, for being with us this morning.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. That's much we can take this morning on Daybreak Africa. Happy Democracy Day, Nigerians.
Happy Democracy Day, Nigerians. So, do we leave our viewers with the news?
We leave our viewers with the news by Susan Archie. My name is Mercy Joe.
And my name is Elvis Ogai. It's always a pleasure.
Assuming that all matters relating to the election should have gone to the tribunal set up by law for such cases and should only have been initiated by persons or bodies that had genuine interest in the election. Instead, we are being told that the judiciary behaved so badly that I, Moshood Kashima Wolawale Abiola, should be penalized for his conduct. It is incredible. In view of all this, I find the conclusion unfortunate but inescapable that the federal military government is guilty of bad faith, pure and simple. No one has accused me of any offense against any known electoral law or regulation. The people of this country went to polls on Saturday, June 12, 1993, and without let or hindrance chose me as their president. Didn't they? It is inconceivable that a few people in government should claim to know so much better about politics and government in our country than the 14 million Nigerians who actually went to the polls on June 12. It is gratuitous insult to suppose that any government, no matter how impressed it is by its own knowledge and wisdom, should, against the people's will, continue to make laws and regulations whose only permanent characteristic is inconsistency. Yes. This country is tired of their inconsistency. Yes. The people of Nigeria have spoken. Yes. Unfortunately, apparently, what the people said was not what they wanted to hear. It was tough luck for them. It is the people's voice that will be heard and will be heard and will be heard again. Yes. They have loudly and firmly proclaimed their preference for democracy.